Dorje Gopal Stop. Okay, let's just do the 4 limitless contemplations. May all beings have happiness and create the causes of happiness. May they all be free from suffering and creating the causes of suffering. May they find that noble happiness which can never be tainted by suffering. May they attain universal impartial compassion, free of worldly bias towards friends and enemies. Semjen damje dewatang dewe jutang denpa jutik dungal tang dungal chitang trawa jutik dungal mepe dewa tampatang mindrawa jutik nering takchang nitang trawe tangnum chempola nepa jutik. Okay, so good morning for all of you who've managed to come between all the disruptions in all our lives, but at least we can record it. But I don't think that this teaching can actually do justice on a recording. I think you have to be present. And if you can at all switch on your camera, I would be very, very happy, because then it makes me see where you're at. And also, I want you to ask a lot of questions. Lovely to see you, Rugari. And I want you to ask a lot of questions, because I'm not giving you a theoretical teaching. I don't usually teach this, but something inside me is calling me to teach all this material. And I think that the people are really asking for something that is a little bit different to what we have been teaching. And I have taught many different texts on I've read many different texts on what is called the 3 words that strike the essential points, the 3 words that strike the essential points. This teaching is surely not for any intellectual, no intellect, but can only be truly understood from deep in our hearts. And I want to thank you that I'm doing it for you, because what happened from actually touching this material to me is that yesterday, and I was doing my usual spiritual practice, but then I was going out and doing all the things I would normally do on a Sunday. But my consciousness was in a different place. I can't explain it to you. I could hear that my answers to people had much more clarity, that actually I was looking and thinking a little bit differently to my usual way. And I thought to myself, yay, that's so important, because if you can start allowing that consciousness to transform from ordinary consciousness into primordial consciousness, then everything starts a different view. And the 3 Vajra verses, some people are still getting bumped off, the 3 Vajra verses of Garab Dorje, which I'll explain to you, embody the life essence of all the Dzogchen teachings, okay? And it further represents the ultimate realization of the essential points of the profound Dharma. Now, Namku Nobu, in talking about it, says, this text contains a very, very special Upadesha. Upadesha. Upadesha means the most secret, highest instructions. Okay, so in the beginning, when the Upadesha comes into being, it is only given to from one to one. And then there's a given point at which some master will get it. That was Longchenpa, and then Patrul Rinpoche, and they will teach it so that more people can get it. And it's very interesting, because this guy, Anam Tupten, that I've been reading and studying his thing, the Citadel of Awareness, he says this is a time. This is a very special time. probably the last section of time in this era, if you want to call it that, where people are saying, I want to wake up. I've had enough. I can't relate to this life anymore. And in order to do that, in order to wake up, you actually have to go into your heart. And I don't care whether you do 5 minutes of practice, 10 minutes of practice, 15 minutes of practice, as long as it is genuine. And for this teaching, you need to wake up in your heart, absolutely in your heart. And he says, this text, Namkha Nobu, contains a very special upadesha. I'll explain what an upadesha is a bit later, that must be securely kept in the core of one's heart. So you can write down, but it's not about the writing down. It's about really absorbing it. And I want you to ask me hard questions, how it affects you, because it's very interesting. I was actually introduced to it in a very funny way. There's this big book called The Golden Letters. I don't know how many of you have actually seen the gold. You've got it, okay. Well, I was on long retreat in India, okay, and I was busy, I had been introduced, much to my great delight, by Taisitu Rinpoche, and I was really in that state and everything. And one day I had to go to this woman who was on retreat in the back of me. So she was just a piece of grass away from me. She wasn't far. I need to tell you this, okay? And when I got there, she started to say to me, Patrul Rinpoche has written a commentary in the Golden Letters and everything. And I said to her, may I see it? I was sitting there and she said, okay. So in her room, I opened it up and started reading on it. And I said, oh my God, I must have this. And I said to her, is it possible for me to just take this home tonight across the grass? I'll give it back to you tomorrow. I just want to see certain things in it. It's really important for me to have it. And guess what she said? No. She said, no, you can't. I said, please, I'm begging of you, let me just take it for one night. She said, no. Okay, so no is no. She didn't give me a reason. She said no. And maybe when I look back, it's funny because I thought, he's such a meanie. I remember thinking she was such a meanie. Why'd she do that to me? But in retrospect, when I look at it, it was probably very much because I was not supposed to have it easy. Okay, I was not supposed to have it easy to be introduced to this. I had to wait a number of weeks until I got what I wanted from Taisitu. I had to wait a long time. And maybe I just wasn't meant to have it. As soon as I got home and I went onto Amazon, there I saw it and I got it, okay? And then that's what's written in this little silver book. I've got all my secret notes of what I wrote down from that, okay? But I'm going to teach you some from that. And I'm going to teach you a lot from Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche, because I really believe that he's able to put this into words that we can understand. And when I did try and teach from the silver book, a lot of people, I don't know why I got a silver book for golden letters, but anyway, that's what I did. And when I taught from the silver book, a lot of people didn't really understand. Sometimes I taught big groups from it. And so there were things I could teach, but I never really took this as a topic. I need to just give you this as a background, and then I'm going to tell you how an upadesha works and what happens. So, and then I'll give you a chance to question. In the Dzogchen teaching, and as I said, this Thupten, not Thupten, our monk, another one, he said that this is a very, very interesting time period, because he said as much as darkness there is, and I've taught you this before, as much darkness as there is, that darkness, if seen in its pure perception, is light. So this is a time when people are degenerating, but it's also a time of great, great potential. And I know Karen gets as excited as me when I'm saying that, because we have to give a chance to people who really want to gain enlightenment in this life, or at least come to a point where in the bardos they will be able to free themselves in some way or another. So in Dzogchen, there are 3 series of teachings. There are a lot more actually, but just for purposes of simplicity now. And they're all to do with getting into the state of contemplation, which is what I do my whole life, all the time. And the state of contemplation is the state of intrinsic awareness. And what does it mean? What does it mean? A state of intrinsic awareness means a state, not a state where you're in some kind of vague, shamatha meditation or something like that. And we'll talk about it, Eric, when I come to Tuku Urchin, but not some state where you're sitting and, the lights are shining and you're suddenly gaining enlightenment. Not that, not at all, but rather a state of enlightenment where you know. Now that word know is maybe the most important word that I can give, because the whole of the golden letters is about knowing, not knowing with your human mind, but knowing with absolute certainty, which is what Garab Dorje left for us, knowing. Now that state of knowing doesn't have to come when you're meditating. That state of knowing, like it was interesting. I said I had this lovely day yesterday, and we were with this old aunt who's 95, but her mind is amazing. And everything she asked me, I gave her an explanation where she said, oh, wow. And she's not on this pathway, but it's like knowing. Like Dzongkar Khyentse Rinpoche, when he's talking about the good eon, the Sutra of the Good Eon, one of the questions that he asks is, how do bodhisattvas know what answer to give people? How do they know what to teach and not to teach? How do they know what to reveal and not to reveal? How do they know? How do bodhisattvas know this? The Buddha knew it. And he goes like if the Buddha coughed. So the doctor said, oh my goodness, the Buddha's got a bad cough. Okay, that's what the doctor said. An old woman who was sitting there took the link of the cough that the Buddha gave, and she understood from his cough how your mind affects your body. She understood that by his cough. And a third person understood something completely different from his cough. So that is what in a state of contemplation or a state of intrinsic awareness is. It's to know. Shame, people are being bumped off. I'm so sorry. It's to know, to really know with absolute awareness what you are doing. What are you doing here? Why am I in this situation? How can I share with you in a different way that is right for you? I mean, the Buddha taught to thousands of different people, and they each heard it, not only in a different language, but in a different way with their own abilities. So what we're talking about is the state of contemplation. And if you want, I will read you. I've got it very briefly written down of what the state of contemplation is in Dzogchen to get you to that intrinsic awareness, but not right now. I just want to say that in Dzogchen, there are 3 series of teachings, okay? The first is called the Semdi, or the mind teaching. Now, this is all about the primordial state of the individual. So it's about your pure essence state in the Sendi, and it goes step by step by step to the state of contemplation, where you've got intrinsic awareness. Then you've got the second series is called the Longde, or the space series. And this is the vast expanse of space, a spacious approach to contemplation, where the Sendi is step by step, depends what you need. Some of us need step by step of everything. Some of us are just there. We did all those steps before. We could just get there. Like this beautiful master said, if you want to climb to the top of the house, don't ask me, because I fly to the top of the house. If you've got to go on a step ladder, don't ask me how to do it, because I can't explain it to you. Okay, so the Longdi is a much more spacious series. And then the third lot are the Upadesha series, or the secret instructions. Now, when you get these secret instructions, you already know how to enter the state of contemplation and the secret methods to continue in that state of contemplation. So now I'm going to give you a little bit of background of how it works, and then I'll open it up, and then we'll do a meditation, because it's really important that you absorb this. And I don't care what questions you have. I don't care if your question is, how do I walk from here to here? But I want you to come up with all the things that block you, that drive you crazy, that don't allow you to get where you've got to go. It's very important. So to understand Garab Dorje and what he did was, the great Dzogchen masters, now I want you to imagine this inside you, dissolved when they were dying. They dissolved their whole gross physical body into pure, radiant energy, brightly colored. So whenever they died, the whole body dissolved into rainbow energy, and it was known as Ru Log in Tibetan, which means reversal. So when you come into embodiment, then all of that is together and you come into a baby's body. So when you go out, and with all the elements come together and you come into a baby's body. When you go out of the body, when you've really attained great enlightenment, then all the elements automatically reverse. And there's a beautiful rainbow light. It's called the rainbow body. And it's such an exquisite thing. And I once had the audacity to ask Taisitu Rinpoche if he would help me to attain the rainbow body. Okay, I won't tell you what his answer was, but he didn't. I just said, I really want to attain the rainbow body. Can you help me? Okay. So he said, that's fine. If you want to do that, that's fine. He said, but you're going to need to really work. I mean, basically, to get there, you probably have to be a little bit like Milarepa and spend your whole life in retreat to be able to get there. But anyway, what happens is the physical elements are dissolved into corresponding colored lights. And then subsequently, this is from the golden letters, reappear in the dimension of the sky as bodies of light to bestow their last testament. So I want you to think about this. They've got a special disciple, and they reverse the energy into the rainbow body. And then they bestow something really, really profound, an Upadesha instruction, nothing you can understand in the intellect, okay, to their senior disciples. And they gave the heart essence of their personal experience. It was Upadesha, not scholarly. It's always simple, simple words, not a whole lengthy explanation. The lengthy explanation comes when the masters are trying to explain it to us because we don't get the sharpness of those words, okay? Upon hearing these precepts that the master gives in his rainbow body, the disciple instantly attained vast and profound understanding equal to the master. I mean, just think about it. So they were equal to their teacher at that point, just because of the instruction, almost like a vase from the master was poured into a vase into the disciple. Okay, and we're talking about Garab Dorje and Manjushri Mitra, you know, Manjushri that we all talk about as being the Buddha of wisdom. Well, he was in an incarnation called Manjushri Mitra, and he was taught by Garab Dorje, who was the first human Dzogchen master to teach. He was taught by him. And when he gave these three verses, these three words, these three statements into his disciple knew, and his understanding was equal to the master, okay? And so it's really, really important that we look at that, and that we look at, so what happened to Manjushri Mitra? So what happened to Manjushri Mitra was the following. I just want to get it in my book. What happened is, when Garab Dorje revealed the method for completely transcending the suffering of samsara, okay, that's what he gave him. This is how you transcend the suffering of samsara. Now, can you imagine what a privilege it is that we can have that teaching? I mean, it's the most amazing privilege, but we can't, we've got to take the teaching I'm going to give you, and you've got to do the hours of just allowing it, not thinking about it, not categorizing. You could certainly read about it, what the masters are teaching, but you've got to just ponder it. You ponder it, and then it starts turning in your own heart. So it's really important. So what happened is, when Garab Dorje was leaving his physical body, Manjushri Mitra fell down senseless, uttering great lamentation. Oh, alas! He was devastated that his master was going to leave. And I keep saying to him, listen, you're so lucky that you had that great master to teach you for all that time. Look at us. We don't even have people really teaching us often. Sometimes we do. But just imagine, he was lying on the ground, swooning. He was absolutely finished, you know, that his master was going. Then Garab Dorje, from the middle of the light, a sphere of rainbow light suspended in the sky, manifested effulgency, his symbolic form. Having dissolved his physical body into space, he reappears in the sky as a glorious body of light inside a sphere of rainbow light called a tigla. And this is called his symbolic form. I want you to imagine this. Then it goes on. You know, when Patrul Rinpoche was teaching this, he gave it line 64, line 65, it's got to be absolutely precise. Okay, so I'm going to read you. Line 64, translated by John Reynolds. For the sake of causing inspiration to arise, the three statements revealed contained the secret last testament. And it is line 65. It descended into the palm of Manjushri Mitra's right hand, written in ink made of melted azure-colored lapis lazuli. Line 66. And the text had been put inside a little vessel the size of your thumbnail and placed within a casket of precious crystal. Line 67. Whereupon Manjushri Mitra was liberated from his faint. He was going, Oh, alas. And then he was liberated from his fang when that came into his hand. Line 68, and he became one possessed of the confidence of sure understanding. Oh, that is so important in this teaching, because if you're doing some theoretical thing and there's no real understanding, it is useless even to look at the three words that strike the vital point. Tuku Urchin says, if you want to kill someone, it's no good killing them in the foot. You've got to kill them in the heart. You've got to put the dagger in the heart. He says, this is the Upadesha, the three statements that put a dagger in your heart, change you, turn you upside down. Like Karen always tells us when she gets all her little bright things that she gets. And then you've got to have confidence of sure understanding. Now, this is one of the things none of us have, is confidence of sure understanding. We always doubt ourselves. Now, if we doubt our human self, that is one thing. But if we doubt our Buddha nature, our awakened mind, then what are we doing? We're not believing. We don't have confidence, which is what Garab Dorje was coming to. Line 69. Because of the confidence of sure understanding, this Upadesha was concealed in the mandala of his heart and kept secret there from others. We only got it centuries later. Okay, it was kept secret, and we're very, very privileged to get it. Line 70. And the nectar of the transmission of these three statements, which were oral teachings received at the time of death of his master, became effulgent and overflowing in his heart. The three statements were written on golden paper. After waking, the master elaborated on the meaning of these three statements orally. Line 71, wherein the real meaning of the view, that's how we look at everything, of Dzogchen was displayed like gold. It was on golden paper. And line 72, to end the explanation, this event occurred at the great cremation ground of Shitavana near Vajrasana, modern Bodh Gaya. And line 73, this holy secret instruction, which was brought into visible manifestation at the source of the Dantik River. Line 74, this is the important thing. It is the very path that brings relief from the suffering of samsara for all sentient beings. And line 75, this Upadesha, which brings about an instant liberation into the pure field of the Buddha, is here completed. And then it goes, here concludes the literal translation of the text, the last testament of Garab Dorje, known as the three statement that strike the essential point, as well as the interlinear commentary composed by translator Vajranatha, who was John Reynolds. And then it goes, Sarva Mangalam, which is how it is sealed in honor, whatever. I don't know if there's real translation for those words, but it's sealed in honor. So that is what happened, okay? And I'm going to give you the 3 points, but maybe somebody wants to say something, because to me, it actually excites my whole being. My whole being actually lights up when I do it. Not when you just read it as ordinary letters, but when you really, really begin to perceive and to feel what was he giving, and how privileged are we in this age before the closing of this opportunity. When Maitreya comes, it will be Maitri, which is loving kindness. It will not be these teachings. These teachings will be withdrawn back to where they belong, up in Akanishta, in the highest realms. Why? Why will it be withdrawn? Because humans, beings, have taken themselves and become so cruel, so egocentric, so everything awful that you can imagine, that we have to go. I'm coming to you, Rugari, and I'm calling you Rugari, not Ru in this group, because I love the name, okay? So when we look at this whole thing, it's so important because humans, have to learn to live and care for each other before they can be brought back. But we are in an age where this is available for us. Rugari, tell me from your little Zim what you want to know.
Hi, Mel. Hi, everybody. So my question is, what is liberation? Because, you're talking about the view, and also there's our capacity, there's our own understanding. So I may have my own connotations, but what are we really saying when we are talking about liberation?
It's a very good question. And Tulku Urgent answers that so beautifully, and I will answer it in detail, but I'll just give you a little bit of what I'm saying. One of the points that Garab Dorje, I must read you the 3 points, but the last point is called getting confidence in liberation. So it's very interesting because your heart was already there when you asked the question, okay? So it's very, very interesting because what does it really mean? I'm only interested in the real meaning. I'm not interested in some elaborate intellectual answer. What does it really mean? It's a helicopter. What does it really mean? Confidence in liberation. Now, what is so important is that in brief, that we as human beings are bogged down by our circumstances, money, intellect, poisons. Those wouldn't be so bad if there weren't all the poisons that were there, all our thoughts, all our feelings. That is what we are totally bogged down in. When we're living our daily life, we're thinking, a lot of people, when's my next meal going to come? How am I going to do this? We're not thinking of the fact that we're in the right place at the right time, where our beautiful enlightened nature is able to give us all that we need, even if we haven't got what we need physically. We bog down. So liberation means when you see the poisons, the situations, the feelings, the thoughts as just part of the essence. So we'll come to do it properly. There's the essence, which is emptiness, and out of the essence, with its nature, which is awareness, come the thoughts, come the creations, come the feelings, come the situations, come the people, come the animals, come the beings, out of the essence. Now, liberation means when you are able to see everything in your life as it is. So in other words, in this instruction, you are able to see thoughts for what they are, which is an expression of purity of the essence. And when you see that, it is automatically self-liberated. It liberates of itself by itself. You don't have to. So let's take an example. You're a very angry person. Okay, you're a very angry person. And every situation in your life reflects of that anger. And you really feel absolutely awful. And you see it as tangible. You see your situations as making you grumpy, as all of these kind of things. You can never liberate. The moment that you go, hang on, this is not permanent, this is not solid, this is not me, this is just the expression of the essence at that very moment when you do nothing, not analyze, not decide, not take action, not anything. it will liberate of itself. And that is what liberation is, to liberate ourselves from what has tied us and put us into boxes and made us so unhappy. And really, that is the essence of liberation. Liberation isn't something that, oh my goodness, you go and sit in a rainbow body in light and you are there. These masters, when they get liberated and they're in a rainbow body, trust me, the next day, they're back in embodiment. They don't have to come back into physical embodiment, but they're back, helping and serving and everything. They can keep one part of their minds doing the beauty and one part of their mind serving to see that every single sentient being is freed. Does that give you an idea, Rogori? But we're going to do this intensely. It's one of the things of Garab Dorje. Does it help
Thanks,
you?
Melanie. It does help, yeah. But I'm also really keen to, like you're saying, to go deeper. So let's see.
Very much. And go deeper. And we're going to go so deep, you won't know yourself afterwards, okay? If you're ready. If you're not ready, it'll just go over your head, okay? And that's what I decided, because I've got such a passion for this, such a passion for it. I feel so, it just changes me every day. Oh, I'm waiting for you, Corin, and Nicola, you wanted to say something, I think.
I just want to say something. Is I know, of course, just like you, I can hear you passionate and excited, and so am I, because this is it for me. Is when you did last year, whatever, I can't remember, probably Longchenpa and the liberation, and I used to say, I negate the thoughts. And you turned around and you said, no, it doesn't exist. Just let it go. Observe. So that was a total aha for me. And from there, I mean, I think I've read everything on always on these 3 points. But like you had from John Reynolds' book, the first time you came across it, I had, and I can't remember which one, is probably Norbu's book, but my aha moment, where I would say a liberating moment, was in one of the books. It was like written, that I will have it somewhere in my notes, which book is what, is that the cause and results, in other words, karma, the cause and results are by nature inseparable and are from the very beginning spontaneously present and already complete.
Thank you.
So that comes into it. And then the practice is by realizing that this life and the bardo is one. So therefore the meditation and the view, I know we're not there yet, is one, but if maybe just one person who's listening can sort of like understand that, then that is already like a freedom to get right into the points. That's all I wanted to say, because that is what really, really helped me. And when I flip out, I straight away, yes, the mind wanders, and now I'll observe, but then I say, okay, this is, and I think karma, and then I don't negate the karma. I say, oh, it doesn't exist. So again,
listen to me carefully. You see, you have to really know what you're doing when you say the karma doesn't exist, because you're right. It's 100% right. But you see, you're going through tragedy. If you're sitting outside an earthquake and your whole family is trapped under the earthquake, you won't go, well, karma's non-existent. Okay, you're going to really be going through trials and tribulations. So more important than that the karma is gone or doesn't exist, more important is to be able to say, I need to see this from a proper perspective. So this tragedy that I'm undergoing, I need to see it's impermanent, it's not solid. Because even when you said, when I spoke to you, you said, I need to let go. And again, Tulku Urgent says, there's nothing to let go of, it's to let be. And the thing is that if you were sitting outside an earthquake, you know, and this is where we've got to really be careful, especially with other people, because other people who are going through their traumatic karma and who don't have that kind of mind are really not interested in hearing, oh, there's an awakened part of you that's not affected and this doesn't really exist. You have to find a way to help those people. Like when I'm sitting with a person who's gone through tragedy, when I'm helping, and I help a lot of people that have gone through real tragedy that makes me cry because it's so sad, you know, losing 2 children, things like that, you know, when I'm sitting with them, especially in the beginning, there's no way I can tell them, well, this karma is not anything, because they'll come to my bed at night and watch me crying for the whole night, and then you'll wonder if it is. So I absolutely agree with you. But we have to find a way, which I think Garab Dorje gave, in having confidence in liberation. The thing Rugari asked, because we have to have confidence in the liberation of whatever we are going through in the karmic thing. Do you know what I'm trying to say? But what you say is 100%.
So therefore, the cause and effect is one.
Yes, the cause and effect is one.
You can't list, so karma would be the cause and effect is one, and not sitting there and saying, this is the cause, why, or the effect of the cause. One is, I think, after this, free of that. That's what,
Definitely.
I put it that way.
Yeah, no, what you're saying is 100% right. I'm just saying we need to make it applicable for people, because people can't understand. And I think what you said about the bardo and life, you begin to realize that the bardo and life are the same. There's no separation, because at the time that we let go of our body, we don't get it into a rainbow body, but by the time we dissolve those elements, we say, now I'm in the death bardos. But actually, Urgent asks, well, you came into birth, and then you had a life, and then you had suffering and sickness, and then you died. He says, but that's only how it seems to be, how it seems to be. It's not really real. Actually, you didn't just come into life and then go through a life and then have sickness and suffering. There was always a part of you that was never involved in the drama. And when you look at the state of contemplation, and I'll read it to you, just the end sentence. It's such an amazing sentence, because in the contemplation, the internal awareness, I'm going to say this slowly, the internal awareness, knowing, and the external appearance, that's your situation, your feelings, your thoughts, everything, the internal awareness and the external appearance encounter each other and become integrated. Isn't that an amazing thing? And then if they're not understood, if you think that this that I am going through is a separate thing and it's suffering and everything else, then your internal awareness and your external appearance haven't integrated. And then you've got duality, which is, here I am, I'm going through this suffering, it's terrible, I must have done some terrible things. That's duality. But the minute you have the state of intrinsic awareness, it meets and encounters the external appearance. And then it just becomes integrated. So then you know, and it takes a long time to know, or it can take 1 second to know. But for us, over a long period of time, it can take a long time to know. So can I just give you the 3 statements, and then let's do a meditation and then debate with me. I love this. And I know that Karen goes through the same as I go through. So it's absolutely amazing, because I love to hear what she experiences. And Karen, you know what? I had a funny meditation about you yesterday, if I may say. I just thought to myself, you're so there, you're right there, and you really understand all of this. I just had this, I'm trying to put into words what I saw about you yesterday, and please throw it out if it doesn't make sense. I just saw myself tidying up your mind, not taking it from distraction. I just tidied your mind. So I thought, it's all there. You know how like when all your stuff is lying around the room, then you just need to go in and fold up the clothes, put them into a cupboard, put this in here. I just thought, that's all you need to do. When you tidy your mind, you're going to just be on your way to rainbow body or something like that. Because you know what? It's really about having confidence in saying, and now you are saying things very differently to how you said them before. Because before you used to say a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit. Now you're putting them together very beautifully. And you're just going to go from strength to strength. So it's beautiful what's happening to you. So let's just read those 3 statements, okay? According to Dajjam Rinpoche, because I thought I'll start with him because he was always my darling. His Holiness Dajjam Rinpoche wrote about these 3 points. So what are the points? Number 1, this is the first word. It's called a word, even though it's a few words. We get a direct introduction to one's own nature. So in order to start what Garab Dorje said, you need to get a direct introduction to your own nature. Now, I've got a few masters' direct introductions and how they got it, but I won't give it to you right now. We can do it afterwards if there's time. I'm not in a hurry with this teaching. I don't mind if we take a good few sessions to do it. I'd rather stop and get you to really understand than to push through, stacks of things. But let's get the 3 statements. The first statement is you need a direct introduction to one's own nature. And remember, you need to be ready. I once attended a lecture of Yongu Minja Rinpoche at Sammy Ling, and it was called Pointing Out Instructions. So I went, how wonderful. I never understood a word of what he said. I was absolutely nowhere near ready for it. I laugh when I think of it, because at the end of the lecture, I said, well, are you supposed to have had an introduction to your nature? I didn't get one. Okay, of course. I'm sure there were people sitting in that huge audience that really did get it, but I wasn't one of them. Okay, so you can get an introduction to your direct nature and you can not know what has happened. Okay, but let me just give you his little description. He says, this fresh, immediate awareness of the present moment, transcending all thoughts related to the past, present, and future. So you're going beyond it, is itself that primordial awareness or knowledge, yeshe, that is self-originated intrinsic awareness, which is rigpa. That is a direct introduction to one's own nature. And it's called the view. The view. Okay, I'm going to give you lots. I'm going to give you Tulku Urchin stuff because he gives so many beautiful things. It's called the view. And just think of how, when you're hiking or something, you go to the top of the mountain to get the view. You want to see the whole panorama. So you go to the top of the mountain to get the view, which is really, really important. So that's the first word or statement, a direct introduction to your own nature, to what is that intrinsic awareness. You get a direct introduction. And that first Upadesha point is that Garab Dorje, who taught Manjushra Mitra, just poured the vase of his mind into Manjushra Mitra, and Manjushra Mitra knew and understood. So you can get, a master can just give you a clap over the head and you can suddenly know. I mean, doesn't have to be a long, you can just get a master can just say one thing to you and it can be your most wow statement that you've ever heard, and it can change your whole life. So that's the first one, the view. The second one, which is very simple, it's all simple, deciding definitively upon this unique state. So if you get an introduction and you don't actually know, you don't get it, and you don't decide definitively, hey, this is what I want to know. I decide definitively that's what my life is going to be about. That's my whole life, what I'm doing. He says, whatever phenomena of samsara and nirvana may manifest, all of them represent just the play of the creative energy or potentiality of one's own immediate intrinsic awareness. So it's called Rikpa Tsal. I remember Taisitu teaching me that Tsal is the playing, the thoughts, the feelings, the situations, the everything. It's called Rikpa Tsal, the playing of Rikpa. Nothing tangible about it, but it feels as though it's tangible. And one has to, he says, since there's nothing that goes beyond this, one should continue in the state of the singular and unique awareness. Therefore, one must definitively decide upon this unique state for oneself and know that there exists nothing other than this. Such a profound thing. So if you've got a theoretical idea that out of the essence with its nature comes all these thoughts, angers, poisons, feelings, whatever you want to say, all your decisions, your manipulations, it all comes out of here. Oh, shame, Corin, I'm really sorry you have to leave. It all comes from here. And if you know this and definitively decide this, then there exists nothing other than that. And that is called the path. That's your path. So you've got your view and you've got the path. And then the third point is, as for directly continuing with confidence in liberation, which is exactly, Rugari, you preempted it, okay, which is amazing because your mind was already thinking about it or getting there. As for directly continuing with confidence in liberation, whatever gross or subtle thoughts may arise, just merely recognizing, knowing their nature, they arise and they self-liberate spontaneously, simultaneously in the vast expanse of Dharmakaya, where emptiness and awareness are inseparable. Therefore, one should continue directly with confidence in their liberation. That's the fruition, the view, the path, and the fruition. So in other words, you just get an introduction to your nature. That's the first one. Then you decide, this is what I want. I decided this is what I want. I want to know this intrinsic awareness. I really want to. And then you go on directly continuing with confidence in liberation. If I am sure that this is just an expression, Rikpa Tsal, it's just an expression of that pureness, then what am I getting my knickers in a knot for? Because it's going to dissolve anyway. So I don't know, before we meditate, if people want to say anything, that's just very brief. And then Tulku Urgent really goes into the depth of those three statements and how we can apply them in our lives every day. So does anyone want to say anything? Yes, Via.
No, what is the third one called? So we got the view and the path and the
fruition. The fruition. Sometimes it's called the conduct, the action, but it's the final thing. It's the fruition. And wherever you look, it's the view, the path, and the fruition. And the view and the fruition are the same. Never were they different. It's just that you have to have the path to go back to the origin. What a pity. We could have stayed there in the first place. Okay, go, Eric.
Mal, how's it? I just wanted to add on to what we said earlier with the question, what is liberation? And then the answer you gave reminded me of something that Chamgon had said himself, you know, the Taisi Tupa, of course, where he says a Buddha is someone who knows the nature of themselves and the nature of all things. So exactly as you said, you simply know things as they are. You see a thought, you know what it is. You don't get caught up in it and the whole story, you know, that follows.
No, and you're right. Thank you. But just know that when people are going through immense suffering, it's really hard. And they get confused because they think that by knowing the nature of their thoughts and feelings, they can get over it. But the human is still mourning and crying over the loss and everything. You know, I mean, it's really unbelievable. And we have to learn that we can give birth to the expression of these feelings. You're not going to come and go through a tragedy and a trauma and then say, oh, well, there's nothing in this and I don't feel it, because that would not be a normal human response. We do cry, we do feel, but we know that what we're feeling and what we're doing is twofold. Number one, it's purifying the way for us to get back to intrinsic awareness. And number two, so we know that this is a way we can get back to intrinsic awareness. And number two, it's once we know we can get, we know we are purifying things and we know that this is not going to last forever and ever. That's the way to do it, but you still go through it. And it's important because people who think you don't go through it and you don't have an emotional output are making a big mistake, because you can't do it. It's not theoretical. It's an experience. Doesn't mean you don't feel. Yes, Eric.
Yeah, of course. I think it was Chagdud Tulku who said, you cannot deny the experience, but of course, ultimately it is empty of inherent nature, but we cannot deny the experience of it all. So absolutely that, I think that succinctly sums up what we're trying to convey here. Thanks.
So let's do a little meditation and then, Rugari, please.
Just a question, Melanie. So as you're talking about this, I agree that, you know, we can't just act like, oh, there's no experience, I'm not feeling what I feel, but it's also not getting so absorbed as if that's everything and the only thing. So I guess my question is about the pain body. So I was listening quite a bit to Eckhart Tolle, and he talks about this, right? Like, okay, sometimes you've got that imprint where things have happened or certain things are happening and they really, you know, they cut or they hurt or they do whatever. And it's almost like because you have it's like you've had that happen. So you start, your energy vibrates at a certain frequency, let's say. And so not to say you're always attracted, but you can recognize that frequency. And sometimes the drama that starts to happen is you falling back into that frequency, even though you're feeling it in somebody else. It's not a conscious thing, but we all kind of do it because we're energetic. So I wanted to understand that bit on when I'm falling back into the frequency of my pain body because I'm in the process of purification, or is it I'm falling back or being reattracted to that frequency in my pain body because I haven't yet dealt with it? So how
Both.
to, okay.
Both, because basically, but it's quite a harsh way to say I haven't dealt with it when you're crying every day.
Yeah.
You know, it's going on
Yeah.
and on. Quite harsh. But the bottom line is it's both. The deeper the imprint, the more pain. Okay, the deeper we go, you know, I look at a lot of people, we don't know if what's happening, but when we look at people who are just killing and killing and killing. I was watching that series of Henry VIII. I mean, Henry VIII, you know, killed something like 700,000 people. He executed. I mean, put them there and chopped off their heads, and the head went rolling into a bucket. I mean, think of the cruelty of that. How many eons did it take Henry VIII to be able to come to an incarnation where he uses his power in a beautiful way again, you know, with a compassionate way? So I'm always looking at all these people. And sometimes the imprint is so, so deep. And sometimes it's not because we've been cruel. It's because we just won't learn the lesson. And the lesson is repeated. It's repeated with that person. It's repeated with that person. It's repeated with your parents. It's repeated with your whatever. You just keep getting the lesson and you won't change yourself for it. So it can be both. And sometimes the pain is immense and we do have to go through with it. But while we are in that, intrinsic awareness is really important, you know, I think. So let's just do a little meditation, and just, I want to do a lot of meditation with you on the self-liberation of your feelings, but only when we've done it. So in the meantime, we'll just do a little bit, and then we'll just do a little bit of the meditation, and then we'll do, and then we'll do the self-liberation at a bit of a later stage, which is really important. So come to your breathing and breathe in and out, taking in all the beauty of everything that you have, and breathing out, not letting go, letting be, which is really important. Just letting be. And back to the breath. And allowing everything to be. Remember what I said, Rikpa Sal. Just allowing it to liberate of its own self. Now when we do this meditation, we're gazing intently at the very essential nature of whatever arises, without a single point of modification. In other words, we're not changing them, we're not deciding upon them, we're not analyzing them, we're just allowing them to be. No analysis. Just let them rise up and let them descend naturally and flow freely, joyfully. Let them shimmer vividly without leaving a trace. If we don't touch them and we don't interfere with them, they will go back like waves in the ocean without a trace. Let them roll on aimlessly without restraint, and release them without limits while resting spaciously without grasping. Every time your mind goes back to touch it, to work it out, to analyze, to modify it, bring it back to the everything that is left alone will rise up no matter how painful, no matter how sore, and will just dissolve into its natural state back again. Every time we realize we're doing it again, bring the mind back and let it be. Didn't even get to all the stories I had for you today. I have lots of stories for you, but I'm going to just, so that we've got a little bit of lightness of being, just tell you the beautiful story of confined in the dark, narrow cage of our own making, which we can take for the whole universe. Very few of us can even begin to imagine another dimension of reality. Patrul Rinpoche tells the story of an old frog who had lived all his life in a dank well. One day, a frog from the sea paid him a visit. "Where do you come from?" asked the frog in the well. "From the great ocean," he replied. "How big is your ocean?" "It's gigantic." "You mean about a quarter of the size of my well here?" "No, much bigger." "You mean half as big?" "No, even bigger." "Is it as big as this well?" "Oh, there's no comparison." "Well, that's impossible," said the well frog. "I've got to see this for myself." They set off together, and when the frog from the well saw the ocean, it was such a shock that his head just exploded into pieces. That's what some people are like. Some people think that their whole life is the narrowness of their lives. And there's just so much more to life than that. There really, really is. And I think it's really important that we see this and that we really understand that. And then I just want to give you, when Nosho Kempo had his pointing out instructions, which a lot of you may know, but I'm going to give it anyway because it's really good, his pointing out instruction. So what happened was, Patrul Rinpoche was his teacher. And Nosho Kempo was an amazing guy. He practiced extremely diligently and accumulated a wealth of purification, merit, and practice. He was ready to recognize the Rigpa, but he'd not yet had the final introduction. Then one famous evening, Patrul Rinpoche gave him the introduction. It happened when they were staying together in one of the hermitages high up in the mountains above Dzogchen Monastery. It was a very beautiful night. The dark blue sky was clear and the stars shone brilliantly. The sound of their solitude was heightened by the distant barking of a dog from the monastery below. Patrul Rinpoche was lying, stretched out on the ground, doing his special practice. He called Nosho Lungtok over to him and said, "Did you know that you did not know the essence of your mind?" Nosho Lungtok guessed from his tone that this was a special moment. And he said, "Yes," he nodded expectantly. "Well, there's nothing to it really," Patrul Rinpoche said casually and added, "My son, come and lie down over here. Be like your old father." Nosho Lungtok stretched out by his side, lying on his back. Then Patrul Rinpoche asked him, "Do you see the stars up in the sky?" He said, "Yes." He says, "Do you hear the dogs barking in Dzogchen Monastery?" "Yes." "Do you hear what I'm saying to you?" "Yes." And then Patrul Rinpoche said, "Well, the nature of your mind is this, simply this." And Nosho Lungtok tells us what happened then. At that instant, I arrived at a certainty of realization from within. I had been liberated from the fetters of it is not. It is not. That's what all of us do all the time. I'd realized the primordial wisdom, the naked union of emptiness and intrinsic awareness. I was introduced to this realization by his blessing, as the great Indian master Sarai has said, "He in whose heart the words of the master have entered sees the truth like a treasure in his own palm." And at that moment, everything fell into place for Nosho Kempo, the fruit of all his years of learning, purification, and practice, and he attained the realization of the nature of mind. But it was very important to know there was nothing extraordinary or esoteric or mystical about the words Patrul Rinpoche used. In fact, they were very ordinary. But something beyond the words, something else was being communicated. What he was revealing was the inherent nature of everything. So I think that's really a really beautiful story of introduction. And there are millions of them. There really are millions of these instructions. So there's so much to teach you about this and so much in the book, but maybe people want to ask or question. I don't want to give you too much. I just want you to ask me or tell me how it touches in you. The introduction to the nature of mind, deciding definitively on one, that is what you're going to do, and gaining confidence in liberation. Those were the three of the Upadesha that were in the little crystal thing that came into Manjushri Mitra's mind. Andres, surely you've got a lot to say.
Not so much to say.
Tell me what you told me.
I think it's this points to an experience rather than a discussion, in a sense, because this is pure experience. And so a lot of my own preparation in deep samatha meditation has probably prepared me for a number of things. And I've read Tujum Lingpa, studied Tujum Lingpa, Tujum Rinpoche's work. And the one thing that strikes me, though, is, as I said, it's very much a direct experience, which you cannot really explain. At the moment, I am supporting a number of people that have recently and are currently dying. So I do practices with them. And those practices vary from pure breathing meditation, just taking them into their mind space with breathing, or Tonglen, or even what I've done is done Chenrezi for them. And normally there's a number of other people present. And what happens?
It's hard. It's hard to do it because
no, it isn't. You know what? It isn't.
Isn't it?
That's the amazing thing of it. When I practice with them, I'm not there.
That's great. Wonderful.
And what happens is afterwards, people will tell me that they experience something. But to me, I'm not there. So, yeah, it's
So
experience.
profound.
And cannot, very, very difficult to explain.
You don't have to explain because your heart says it all, but that's so beautiful that you're called on to do that a lot. Because I'm sometimes called on into places, you know, I'm often called on into places where people have got no Buddhist learning and where even the person who's dying has got no Buddhist learning. Yeah. And it's very difficult. And it is true, one should just let go and do whatever is necessary. But, you know, when you're in that situation and you've got people not really liking what you're saying and things like that, but somehow you land up in that situation, it's very difficult. And I think what you're saying is so important. You just let it happen through you. And, you know, that's where it all comes from. And that's what all of this is about, isn't it?
Yeah, I tend to use sort of invoke the mind of Akong Rinpoche.
Wonderful.
Into the practice.
Yeah.
And just let go. And then what happens in the practice is almost it's not scripted. It's not you know, it just happens. So
beautiful, beautiful. Just please keep doing it because there's so many people lost in the borders. Just keep doing it. And obviously you're being called where you are really needed, and it's such a help. I mean, it's such a help because I was talking to a cousin of mine's wife in America quite late last night, and she just lost her mother. And I think it was a situation where her mother was really not very nice to her as a baby and a child, and then she looked after her mother later on in years. So it's like a really difficult thing with her mother dying and so on, and with her mother's death. And I just thought, you know, it was late at night, I was tired and everything, and all I did for her was, you know, when she says, it's so upsetting and my mom's gone and I don't really know how to handle it. And I just said to her, well, how about talking her through her death? She said, how'd you do that? I said, well, how about, and I was thinking of the simplest possible thing. I said, well, how about you just say to her, Mom, I forgive you for everything in the past. And I just want you to move into the light of your beautiful journey that you're on. And there was a silence on the telephone, you know, to me, it was just such a silly little thing that I'd said, but it was so deep in her heart. She said to me, you know, oh my goodness, Melanie, that's so profound. That'll help me so much with the grief I'm going in and everything. So I think sometimes even if we can't do a lot of what we'd like to do, just one sentence helps people, and one sentence wakes us up, and one sentence changes.
But from the heart, not a scripted thing from, you know, my teaching or that teaching.
Say that again, repeat it. Repeat.
It just happens from the heart, from the chitta, from the heart mind. the one thing I'd like to also just say about the Dzogchen teachings, and you know, it depends always on the audience. The Dujum Rinpoche, Dujum Lingpa, all make very pertinent the fact that this is not just sitting and dawdling away, and I'm feeling the experience. It's really achieving samatha. So you can't neglect your samatha practice. It is total experience of samatha, which makes you ready for the opening, for the instructions, or for the pointing out. Because if that's not there, you miss it.
Absolutely.
You know? So the one experience I had with Shamtra Rinpoche, for instance, is he gave a teaching on which we've done a lot, which is the prayer of Kuntuzangpa. And throughout that process, which is a couple of nights, I went into meditation while listening, not write the thing down because I knew the text. And what he taught was not what he gave me.
So wonderful.
So, yeah.
I
Anyway.
know it. That's absolutely beautiful. And I know that's what I was doing, preparing this teaching. It was just soaring inside of me. And I've read it many, many times before, but now was the time I needed to bring it forward. And the whole weekend, it's just been soaring in my mind, you know, and I've been looking at things completely differently. And I even had the thought yesterday of, I mean, so many of these just dawnings were happening. And I suddenly thought, what would we see in the earthquake, in the war, if we could see it with this awakened mind? And then I remembered when the Karmapa walked past that butchery that time, and there was this butcher with a knife on top of the board, and the monks went, there was all blood running around, and the Karmapa went in and stood there, and then this butcher, so to speak, put the knife, the bloodied knife, on the top of his head, you know, and the monks went, has he gone nuts? Has he gone mad? You know, what is he doing? He saw Vajrayogini there giving him this unbelievable initiation. He didn't see the butcher. And I wondered, yesterday I had this thought, I wonder what we would see if we could see the earthquake and the war as it really is. Not
Be careful of appearances.
Yeah. And I just thought it's unbelievable, but that's beautiful. Thank you for that, Andrew. It's always lovely.
Lovely teaching.
And today, I mean, we'll have to try. I hope that the people that are not here will be able to get it all on the recording. So let's just dedicate, and then I'll spend a few minutes afterwards. I don't know when the thing is. So let's just dedicate with our Tibetan, if I can't find that. To all sentient beings going through immense suffering, may this beautiful teaching in some way benefit them, touch their hearts. May our beautiful work of all of us touch the hearts of many, many suffering beings. Sonam die tamje zipane topne nepe dranam pamshene jegana chibala tropaye sipe sole dua dro warsho.